Come along with me as we transform this before to this after. So here I am removing the drawers and trying to remove this cupboard door, ready for the prep and cleaning stage. And as it turned out, these doors were really hard to remove. Initially, my plan was to move the piece outside so I could sand. In the end, I had to bring it inside because it started to sprinkle. I'm sanding the top as I'm going to be doing this as a natural finish, and I'm starting off with the 120 grit sandpaper. And I always sand along the grain of the timber. Anyhow, moving on to the scuff sanding. So I ended up scuff sanding all around the piece with my audible sander using 120 grit sandpaper. I then grabbed my 120 grit paper and scuff sanded all around the edges so I could get into those groovy areas. And obviously I worked my way down to the feet so I could get down to the bottom of the feet area as well. I then went around and taped up all of my hinges and around the top as I was preparing to paint the base. All along the bottom there, so for inside the cupboard doors, and ready for painting. So now I'm applying my top coat paint. I have already painted 2 coats of the primer, and again I use the Porter's paint primer for this piece, and now I'm going over in the colour Irish Linen for my top coat. You'll notice that I'm using a brush and a roller. I like to use the brush just to get into the little fiddly bits and then I roll. So most of the time I usually brush and then roll. Okay, so now moving on to my doors, I'm using my brush to get into the edges, and I always finish off with a roll. Also remembering these have already been cleaned and they have been scuff sanded prior to this coat of primer. Now for the top, I like to use a sponge to apply my stain. I'm actually using Brazilian Rose, heavily diluted down with a satin clear polyurethane. I love the colour of this stain. It's definitely one of my favourites. So when it comes to applying stain, I like to work along the grain of the timber, so in long directions, as you can see, back and forth. Once I've applied the stain, I like to allow it to dry for around 30 minutes, and then I go through with a very fine grit paper just to ensure that it's very smooth before doing a second coat. Now for a recap, remember the before? What do you think?